Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We begin our next briefing about results of the trip of the parliamentary delegation to NATO and International Secretariat of the Parliamentary Assembly of NATO. I represent our panelists, Ivanna Klympush-Tsintsadze, MP from Poroshenko Bloc, head of the parliamentary delegation of Verkhovna Rada to NATO PA. Viktor Chumak, MP from Petro Poroshenko Bloc, Andriy Teteruk, MP from People's Front Party, Andriy Vysotsky, MP from People's Front Party, and we believe that Andriy Kozhemyakin, one more MP, will join us, and I give the floor to Ivanna Klympush-Tsintsadze. Thank you. Good afternoon. On the on March 12 and 13, a big parliamentary delegation of 13 MPs. It was a broader than delegation, a regular delegation of Ukraine in Parliamentary Assembly of NATO. It's broader. We participated in the work of headquarters of the Alliance and International Secretariat of the Parliamentary Assembly of NATO at the invitation of those leading organizations of those structures of those organizations. We would like to inform you that from open discussions, quite difficult discussions we had in the Alliance, we understand that NATO and its leadership on all the levels, they understand well the problem Ukraine is facing, and they clearly argument and define the position of Russian Federation as aggression against Ukraine, and they understand well that we have to participate in the international conflict. It's not just internal Ukrainian conflict. Because of that, alliance countries, they have active consultations on how efficiently to help Ukraine in introduction of reforms to the defense sector. We are the most interested in that because our success in the reform of the defense sector is a key to officially fight against the enemy. Though we have a ceasefire, but at the same time we have information we receive from occupied territories that attack advance from terrorists supported by Russian Federation is quite realistic, and abusing Minsk agreements is quite realistic. And I would like to draw attention to the fact that despite the situation we are in, we see that what our colleagues in the alliance told us, we see that not always Ukraine efficiently uses those opportunities that are provided to us, and not always Ukraine uses efficiently those instruments offered by our partners from the alliance. In particular, we had quite a long conversation about that the alliance offered us 5 new trust funds of NATO, each of which they invested money for those trust funds to modernize the communication system and logistics and tenders, and one more trust fund on cyber security, one trust fund for rehabilitation and medical support to our soldiers, and one more fund which was meant to improve social adaptation of military men. All these funds at the moment, they are not, we have not provided the legal base to use those funds, and the issue is Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Finances, they were supposed to develop that legislation and draft legislation, and the Cabinet of Ministers must bring that to the Parliament. So we're concerned with the situation that such opportunities are not used by us. And we asked the Minister of Defense and requested, and tomorrow we'll have a meeting with the representatives of the Defense Ministry and with NATO mission in Ukraine. And I hope that we will start efficient cooperation in order to solve problems which we have for those trust funds to work and for Ukraine to start using them. There were many other details, and our cooperation is not the way we want. And I would like to invite my colleagues for them to give you more details on what we succeeded to learn and what we will work on for us together with the executive branch to achieve good results. I wanted to say that what Ivanna told, I would like to add a couple of things. We had tough discussions. In general, as to policy of NATO to Ukraine, it's clear one of the main problem was, or difficult problems, the ability of Ukraine to stand against the aggression in the east. That ability and that capability, which could be supported by weapon supplies of NATO. NATO doesn't make a decision whether to give weapons to Ukraine or not. Such decision is taken by countries, members of NATO, in the framework of the foreign policy or defense policy. NATO can provide information, analytical information to those countries, intelligence information, but recommendations in any case. But NATO doesn't make a decision as a collective body. As a collective body on the political or logistic level. That's why, no doubt, the conversation with us, it was about not just and it was about recommendations to countries how they can provide lethal weapons to Ukraine. That issue by per se is still in the agenda. All NATO countries clearly understand that survival of Ukraine depends on resources also. Resources Ukraine cannot have in a very short time during the war, and that includes weapons. That resource should be taken into consideration, and they should supply it to Ukraine. That issue is very important. At the same time, different countries and have different vision. That's why with some countries, Ukrainian can have higher level of relations and broader cooperation, and with others we could have less. But there is a dialogue, and to the big extent, NATO countries consciously understand what kind of aggression they are facing. So they develop a concept of that kind of war we are facing. They prepare some public opinion. They prepare the institutions that they can face such a hybrid war in their territories, and that's why they develop a decision on how to quickly take decisions if such threats will be against NATO countries, and how they can apply Article 5 of Washington Agreement, or Washington Treaty. We have some problems with in relations on the level of operational command, on concrete operational cooperation within some programs. It's great that we visited them. It's good that we had a sincere dialogue with, including with the mission of Ukraine in NATO, and also operational services of NATO that work in Ukraine. It's great that we understand the problems we are facing. That's why what we planned for tomorrow, the head What she planned quite a broad meeting. Tomorrow will influence on all the issues for us in a very short time to correct the situation. As to cooperation, interoperability on very important issues. In general, our message was very simple and clear. Ukraine is in the stage of aggression. Ukrainians are fighting for those values which are basic values of NATO countries and EU countries. That's what for our people are dying. For Europe not to fight for those values on this territory, they should help Ukraine as much as possible now. Thank you. I would like to add, in my opinion, our delegation strengthened substantially Ukrainian representatives in NATO, and I believe that we opened a lot, we found a lot of painful issues for us, and until now they were in a suspended state. It's a great pleasure that the leadership of NATO and ambassadors of NATO countries, they were quite serious to those issues, and they understand that Ukraine, it's not that like we don't want. We are in the state of war with Russia, and everybody understands what kind of a serious threat it is for Ukraine. We agreed that cooperation which we have in documents and in intentions, we should enhance it and we should improve it. And that includes military trainings, because it's clear that decisions on bringing contingents, that's quite a difficult process, complicated process, but to help our military men to learn, to get knowledge, and to send back professionals who can cooperate with NATO units and how to improve our capability. That process, I would like to confirm, it looks quite optimistic, and we agreed to develop it. Also, we touched the issue of assistance to our veterans who receive, who come from ATO with wounds and who are disabled, and we need to return them back to normal life. And so there was a decision to improve the program, to enhance the program, which will help them to get prosthetic limbs, and also they will provide assistance to mental assistance, rehabilitation assistance, in order to turn them back our military men to normal life as a result after the threats. It's awfully important because
now, the United States of America had a very problematic situation after the return of the servicemen from Vietnam, and they were not prepared to the situation when those who came back perceived the surrounding reality after what they saw in Vietnam, to create a necessary atmosphere for the, let's say, job placement and providing different kind of benefits and assistance. Also, we discussed the situation regarding the interaction and cooperation. I would like to give the floor to Sergiy Vysotsky, and we'll be happy to answer your questions, if any. Thank you, Andriy. A bit more specific. I'll try to be a bit more specific. To be very honest with you, what they try to draw attention rather specifically that the Ukrainian authority, the Verkhovna Rada, the Minister of Defense, and some of the executive authorities, they actually show the underwear effort, and they work with the Office of NATO in Ukraine. The three major key issues which invite the immediate resolution in Ukraine. Number one, interaction of the defense authorities with the NATO experts who today cannot find any, let's say, solid grounds for cooperation with the Minister of Defense. They do stay in key, but they do not feel that the expert thoughts, ideas, and advice to bring Ukraine closer to the NATO standards, they do not find the understanding of the Minister of Defense. This is something we are going to work on with the Minister of Defense, and I do rely upon the defense sector, their cooperation with NATO. Then we have the comprehensive approach with the NATO cooperation, which is not introduced today because Ukraine needs somebody to coordinate those issues. Coordinate the issues of the Minister of Finance and all the permission issued by Minister of Finance to the issues of Minister of Defense or the legislative basis, etc., etc. And I believe that all our liaisons and contacts which we established in Europe will allow us to resolve those issues and problems, and that the parliamentary group of friendship with NATO, Parliamentary Assembly of NATO, will become the bridge, we will bridge the gap in our actions of our authorities and the specific bodies in NATO, and will bring us to some let's say unique or the single system of cooperation. This is what regards the trust funds. Number three, which is not why I'm not satisfied in NATO and Europe, the custom duties and custom charges imposed on all the assistance, the aid coming from the NATO member states. What they say, their logic is understandable. If we give you free of charge on a volunteer basis some aid, could be material assistance, non-lethal aid which is already provided. All those should not be taxed or custom charged. And according under our legislation, this is impossible, but it requires some actions to be taken in order to synchronize all the, let's say, whatever has been worked out in the NATO to be implemented by Kebmin and the Verkhovna Rada and the Customs Service and Minister of Defense and the fiscal services. And within the framework of this interaction, we have to adopt the agreement about cooperation, which will fix that those commodities and goods which are required better by our defensive sector to be taken out from the taxation field. And actually, this effort also requires some coordination. What I would like to say that the path toward the cooperation with NATO and to the supply and delivery of the lethal weapons to Ukraine is open because NATO understands all too well the level of the threat on the part of Russia. And what they told us, they understand that this is not a problem of Ukraine any longer, or the east of Ukraine. This is the issue which actually is associated with the Putin's aggressions against the whole world, or against the order in the world over. They try to come up with some mechanism how to defend their lands, but the issue of lethal weapons, and everybody is talking about that, is included into the agenda. But in order to demonstrate that Ukraine can be responsible in dealing with those supplies and deliveries, that we can get these kind of high-tech weaponry and lethal weapons, we have to show that we have some progress, and I believe that everything will be done on the level of the parliamentary cooperation, and everything will work as is our hard time requires that. Thank you. Dear colleagues, do you have any questions? Igor Shumikin, Ukrainian News. Can you tell me, in your opinion, whether the NATO assistance aid is sufficient for Ukraine? If not, but what would you like to underline here or emphasize here? I'll try to start. Maybe my colleagues will echo what I'm going to say. I'm convinced that we underuse what have been proposed to us already. Moreover, as soon as we are able as a state to efficiently use, or at least to start, to establish and to just a mechanism to receive the assistance given to us and coordination of the real reform in the defense sector. This will mean that other additional, let's say, programs and opportunities will be open to Ukraine. And what Sergiy mentioned, now we underuse those programs which had been started already in Ukraine. For example, let's say the burial of radioactive waste, in particular our scientific and research cooperation with NATO. So those programs which were launched back in 2010 and or 11, I can't understand why they were not used completely in those days, but at the same time, we faced the need to use this cooperation, which had to be used since 2014, but for some reason we did not do that. At least I personally do not have the feeling that NATO or the assistance or aid which they propose today as an organization is not sufficient. I do not have this feeling. We are talking now about the specific technical material things, but in addition to that, we should not forget about the political and diplomatic support of NATO as an organization is also very important to us, and the consultations which are in the way between the countries also influence different organizations which take this or not decision regarding Ukraine.
Very briefly, I would like to add, people clearly understand that we can take as much as we can take. So everything depends on on us. How we are able to reach to that extent to which we can take, they will give. And NATO, within their programs, they are ready to start any program, and countries members who are ready to cooperate with us. So everything depends on what we can to develop the legislation, to overcome corruption, because Canadians were softly saying shocked when the first not lethal assistance got to our markets and on free sale. Of course, it's not the Minister of Defense, and of course, officers from warehouses took that out. And that speaks about the level of corruption we have in the country, and they are very sad with that. And I would like to say that level of corruption should be overcome on the level of the lowest level and on the level of corruption which exists in on the top layers of power. So that's why everything depends on us. And so the world, we felt that Europe and the world, they are tuned, they want to help us quite consciously. And they change even the general opinion. I can give you a very simple example. That happened to Sergiy. When we went through custom border control in Brussels, and Lila Grevich in a different. She and Sergiy, they asked at the same time, Belgian policeman. They asked, "What about the war against Putin? Will you stand? We will support you." These Belgian policemen, believe me, I know them for years. Usually, they never thought about politics. Then they were never interested in politics. They didn't care what was happening in anywhere outside of Brussels. Now they think about that politics, and from 6 those booths, and if 30% of them thinking about politics, that's a big victory, and they think about politics in a way they see. This is the public opinion changes taking place in Europe, and because it was very difficult to observe during a year. So everything depends on us, how we behave to our partners, and how open, transparent we are, and how able we are to have a normal cooperation. That will influence on the assistance to us. Batkivshchyna news. A specific activity you're talking about, and do you involve NGOs? If yes, how? Thank you. I will have one more question. I don't have an answer for your question because I don't. To defense and defense sector, there is not enough of civic control, but that's has a special nature. The issue of procurements and the issue of volunteer council by the Ministry of Defense and general staff that was announced at Tatiana Lechkov that should improve the influence of civic sector on the defense, and it should help should improve transparency. And we see that volunteers they saved and they sped up access to Ukrainian militarymen of the second Canadian cargo, and volunteers work better with MOD. And volunteers, they have a direct function. They give supplies and they help, but also they see some violations. They inform about that to MOD and to deputies. And we have some questions to the Committee on Defense. So that's how we civil society cooperates with politicians, and it's in the process, especially in the delegation, we don't have the Council of Civic NGOs in the documentation. Maybe Ivanna will add up to this, but in the defense sector, the level of civic participation is growing. Whether responsible procurement, humanitarian support, and it's less within in intelligence, because all the information is classified, and the less here, the better it is for the state. At our meeting with the MOD, there was a representative of the head of the chair of the Council of Volunteers in MOD. So we will cooperate with them. A small comment. In my opinion, during the last year, probably politicians are behind from the civic sector. We need to catch up with them because they quickly reacted to all the threats and problems, and so it's better. I would say that better they involve us than us, because there are representatives of three factions. I have the question. One more faction is not here yet. We hear all the time that we are trying to involve some resources, external sources, and there are some internal resources that are not used. For example, in 2010, for billion they bought web cameras and notebooks to control the electoral process. Until now, that hardware is sleeping. How are you ready to raise those issues? And maybe the money of tax payers should be involved. I used Anatoly he will give a general answer, but concretely about those web cameras. I remember that procurement, corruptional, Yanukovych did it. He bought it from Russian company. Yes, from Yushchenko. That's Viktor Fedorovich allowed the Russians to make $1 billion. In which state those web cameras are, whether they work, whether they were installed, I don't know about that. Probably, if they are somewhere, they should be used somehow, but maybe they are not there. Just $1 billion of hryvnia went somewhere, nowhere. I just remember how it was done. Probably, you're absolutely right, asking about resources and that can be used, and our resources, our resources and resources of other countries, and we discussed that issue too. At present, using our resources, we will not be able to stand against the aggression using only our resources, including financial, material, and including military, technological, etc. That's why, but it's very important to involve others. And the question which and to which extent, I see representatives of NATO, and I say, if there is a problem with the supply of lethal weapons, we have analogical weapons, like Ptur-Stuhna, missile Sapsan, which is a unique system, some other developments. Let's do this. You give us components and investments, and we work together. That's quite a complicated issue because this is competition on the market of weapons, and it's long, it's clear. So we need something should be brought and used, but the long-term procedures. I don't know about web cameras. I know that they were on all polling stations, and they were installed in these elections. We saw them in my district. We saw that. Maybe. But then you raised that issue because we don't remember everything. Raise that issue of those resources that could be used and that were provided by the state, and in your opinion, they are somewhere, they are not used. We'll raise that issue. About how we use resources. For 23 years, our resources that were supposed to be sent to strengthen the defense of our country, they were stolen, and they were sold out, or they were given out to someone. Now, when we speak about military industry we have in the country, and when people say that Ukraine should all those weapons, all technology, all equipment we produce at the request of, according to the contracts of foreign countries, we should take that and we should direct that to our front. That will bury our industry, military industry. Ukraine belongs to 10 countries that sell weapons. We should understand that will destroy all our military industry, military production industry, because the war ruins not only processes, and we will have a lot of fines, a lot of sanctions. That order which was ordered by the other countries, we cannot take it and use it. But the Committee on National Defense and Security, they control production at the request of the Ministry of Defense of all the weapons we need. In that volume we can use. What we cannot use technologically or as a resource, we have, as you see, we discuss with other countries. We have discussion with other countries and what kind of technologies, equipment, and military equipment we can buy to improve substantially the defense capability. So there are resources redistribution for the needs of the country. It's taking place, and I hope that will allow us to preserve not only those material resources, but the most important human resources, because those resources, those losses that are not recoverable. So I would like to confirm that we are trying to control all work of military production industry. You need to understand correlation. For just for you to know numbers 1 to 16, that's our spendings and Russian spendings into the defense. If we take all the resources, 1 to 16. Coming back to the topic of the briefing, you told that there were several issues where Ukraine inefficient, and that's why our partners are not happy. What you as MPs are going to initiate, which steps are you going to take for that to be not an obstacle? As we told, first of all, for tomorrow we plan a meeting with NATO mission in Ukraine and MOD. We hope that we will understand details, what is done, what should be improved in the parliament. We will ask the cabinet of ministries or ministries, and as a result, we will understand what steps to be taken by members of the delegation. We are all ready to. We are all decisive. We want to work in harmony and cooperate with our ministries in harmony, and we are convinced that they and us, because we represent the same country, we have the same interest, we are interested in finding keys to solutions of those problems we found during our visit to headquarters of NATO. So you're planning to clarify the situation, how that became possible that such opportunities were not used. Yes. And to take a balanced and correct decision, we need to understand what was wrong from our side, because emotions during our briefings, that's more like about information than on emotions you cannot take decisions. But tomorrow we'll ask people who are responsible what is done, what is not done, what is an obstacle, and then we as deputies will try to correct the situation, because I sent a request about how military men were trained in foreign academies. Now I prepare materials and I will work with the Ministry of Defense to understand how many of those officers or soldiers who were trained in military academies abroad, who was promoted, who was not promoted, and so if we don't appoint our people with potential, then we will make recommendations, and we have a lot of officers, as we found out during NATO, who are brave and who can take very good decisions. So that's why we'll also recommend changes to the Ministry of Defense and to General Staff. Thank you very much. Looking forward to see you again. Colleagues, any question? No question. Thank you very much. Thank you. And today, let's call it a day. And thank you very much.